Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our TNA show for the week. Let's jump right into it. First off, we're going to start with our so-so segment. Basically the stuff that wasn't bad, wasn't good, it was just there. We start off the night with MVP and his crew, Lashley and Kenny King. They come to the ring talking about having all the power, which brings out Eric Young and Bobby Roode, which brings out, I forget what the gentleman's name was, but the representative from the board of directors in TNA strips MVP of his power. So we're going to see a new position of authority yet again tonight, which brings out later in the show, and I'm going to tie all three of these together even though they didn't really go at the same time. They were different, spread out. Halfway through the show we see Dixie Carter and Rockstar Spud come out to celebrate, assuming they are going to be it, which brings out the guy from the board of directors again, says no it's not you. That brings out Bully Ray. He threatens to put Dixie through a table, which brings out Ethan Carter. They do a whole little thing. He gets this close to putting Dixie through the table, but isn't able to. Which leads us to our end segment of the night. Their big reveal. The board of directors comes out. Our new director of wrestling operations is Kurt Angle, which brings out MVP's group, and he reinstates Bobby Roode. Eric Young and Bobby Roode come down. They do a little Mexican standoff where they start fighting with the King and Lashley. Not horrible. Just the whole idea of the character, and what is this? 2 months removed from MVP getting the character, or I don't know. Just to me, the on-air role of a GM or position of power is a little passe at this point, and I think wrestling companies need to move beyond that. Which leads us to, now, we're going to go, since I didn't really think there was anything overly bad on the show, we're going to go right into our questions of the week. The first question from last week was, would you rather see the traditional 4-sided ring or TNA bring back the 6-sided ring, which was their own poll, which the 6-sided ring won by a landslide, not surprisingly. Our first answer comes from our friend Infinite Skittles. 6-sided ring, it makes TNA unique and it reminds me why I started watching TNA in the first place. Could not agree more. The main problem that I've always had with TNA is at times they try too much to be the WWE. When you have something, and you have something like this, like the 6-sided ring, that WWE would never do in a million years, it instantly gives someone switching through the channels and they see, wrestling's on. Let me take a look, see what it is. They see a 6-sided ring, they go, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know what that is. That's different. So they stay tuned longer. And maybe they get to see a match that they like. Or they get to see a wrestler they like. Or in TNA's case, and I think TNA banks on this, they see someone that they remember from WWE. And it keeps them watching the show. They say, oh, well that's what happened to Mr. Kennedy. He's in it, he wrestles here now. That's cool, I'm going to tune in and see what else I see. Maybe they see Bully Ray, who they grew up watching ECW with. Maybe they see Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist, one of the all-time greats in the sport. Or maybe they get sucked in by something like one of the amazing X Division matches, like someone like Sonata or Manic or T-Ray Uno. Or, one of the TNA originals, or a guy like Bobby Roode or Eric Young. Either way you look at it, it brings a casual viewer in and keeps them interested a little bit longer, which is always a plus in marketing. It's always a plus in getting your product over. Anything to differentiate TNA from WWE is a good thing, especially when the fans seem to enjoy it. Now, coming off of that, and like I said, I'm for 6 sides of the six-sided ring. I like it better aesthetically for TNA. Coming from that, we're going to go into our question of the week for this week. Now, I didn't mention, I think I glossed over it a bit on the last week's show. I didn't go into great detail other than I was super excited for it. TNA's inducted Team 3D, Bully Ray and Devon, into their Hall of Fame. Now, so far, they've done the Hall of Fame 3 years in a row. The first year they inducted Sting, last year they inducted Kurt Angle. This year they're inducting Team 3D. All three have been somewhat active when inducted. Sting and Kurt Angle were part of the rosters. Bully Ray, still part of the roster. Devon is doing a couple things now with them. Not part of the roster, but still Bully Ray's active. So their 3 acts that they put into the Hall of Fame have all been active at the time of the Hall of Fame. Something that WWE doesn't really do. They put in Ric Flair with 1 match left, and I think that's it. I think Ric Flair's the only one that they put in before his WWE career went down, because we all know guys like Coco Beware and, you know, all of them. You can see them on the indies, but it's, for the most part, for the fans that watch their show, their guys are retired that are in the Hall of Fame, mostly. You know, besides the Ric Flair exception, which he retired the night after. Long story short, I over-explained it. Are you okay with TNA inducting active TNA roster members, or do you think they should wait till they're retired, and they should have went with someone like maybe, you know, Ken Shamrock, who was an early contributor in TNA, Jerry Lynn, who contributed a bunch to TNA, Don West, who was their original announcer, contributed a lot to TNA, Jeff Jarrett, who I know is opening a new company, but without him there is no TNA, Low Key, you know, guys that aren't on the roster now and could be perceived as being retired, whether they are or not. Jerry Lynn is retired. He's someone they could have easily given it to, and it would have made sense historically wise for TNA. But I'll talk about that more next week. Do you think are you okay with them giving active TNA roster members a Hall of Fame spot, or do you think they should go the retired route? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter. Put it down where? Down there in the comments. Now we're going to move into the good segments of the night, which actually was a heavy majority of the night. The opening match, The Beautiful People versus Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell. Good match, great way to bring Taryn back into the wrestling portion. She came back in the interview portion last week. Thought it was a good match, way to start the show, way to put her right into a feud with some of the best wrestlers in the division. I liked it, kept me interested. Gail and Taryn win. Just a good opening match. I enjoyed it, which leads us into our next match. A 4-way for the X Division title, Sonata versus Manic versus DJZ versus Crazy Steve. Another good match, a lot of frenetic action, which we come to expect from the X Division. With the 6-sided ring coming back, I'm going to be really excited. They seem to have some really good elements to start building up the X Division to what it once was. You got guys like Sonata, Tigre Uno, Manic, TJ Perkins, whatever you would call him, DJ ZZ, Ion. Crazy Steve, he's okay. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to fit into that mold of the X Division style, but he's a guy that they could put into matches. I think they have the basis to build the X Division to what it once was, and maybe bring in a couple other guys. I mean, there's plenty of guys wrestling around on the independent circuit that would be amazing fits. Guys like Jigsaw, Ricochet, Rich Swann, ACH. I mean, you got guys all over that you could bring in that would add to this division. A guy like Lance Lude, guys that could easily come in, add another element in, and you got the X Division as hot as it's ever been. Sonata picks up the win in the 4-way, which leads us into our next match. James Storm versus Mr. Anderson. I think these guys can't put on a bad match. This was, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. These are two of the guys I like most in TNA. I think they're two of the best talents TNA's ever had. And they didn't disappoint me at all. These guys have gone against each other, I think it's 4 or 5 times now, between TV and pay-per-view. And no match has been the same, and no match has been disappointing. James Storm picks up the big win. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like the fact that their feud's going forward, and I enjoy any time these two wrestle each other. Coming off of that, we had our backstage segment, which spilled into a on-screen segment. We seen that Dixie and Rockstar Spud left EC3, Ethan Carter in the building. He gets attacked by Tommy Dreamer. They brawl all throughout the arena, of course, leading up to coming off of what they did with Tommy Dreamer last week. Tommy Dreamer again gets a huge crowd reaction. I believe it was taped the same night anyway. Like I said last week, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, hotbed for the old ECW. They used to run shows there often. The crowd is going to be very pro ECW, very pro Tommy Dreamer, which most crowds are. I don't know anybody. Tommy Dreamer, to me, and I might be wrong, but he's one of those guys that I've never heard anybody talk bad about. I've heard people go, oh, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Tommy Dreamer, but he's good at what he does. But I've never heard anybody say, oh, I hate Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer sucks. He's one of those guys that's universally loved, kind of like a Mick Foley is, kind of, you know, gets that kind of respect and that kind of admiration. I agree. I think Tommy Dreamer's awesome. He's one of my favorite wrestlers that's never really been a heel. And I love heel wrestlers. I'm more of a fan for the heels. I like what they do better. It intrigues me more. They get to flesh out their characters more. Tommy Dreamer is one of the face characters that's pretty much been a face his entire career. And I enjoy every minute of it. I think Tommy Dreamer's awesome. Anyway, I digress. That's my little soapbox standing on to talk about the backbone of ECW and the new backbone of House of Hardcore. But we'll go on to our next and last, but definitely not least, the Monsters Ball match, Bram and Magnus versus Abyss and Willow. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I hate the Willow character. However, Jeff Hardy, Willow, is well within his environment. Anytime you put in the hardcore element, the ladders element, the chairs element, the table element, all that stuff, Jeff Hardy absolutely thrives on it. Abyss as well. Bram and Magnus stepped their game into it and were more than credible. They held up their end of the bargain. They looked like they belonged with two guys that are veterans of these kind of wars, that are, I don't know if you could say superstars of these kind of no-holds-barred type matches. But Bram and Magnus pick up a huge win for them. I like them as a team. I'd like to see them keep going forward as just a hard-nosed, kick-ass team. I think they got a lot they can do with this team. I think it's a good team for TNA right now, and I enjoyed this match. I really did, even though the crappy Willow character was in it. But basically, that's all I have to say about this. I'm going to go right into my ratings for the week. Now, if you've seen the show before, you know we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best, 1's a Dixie Carter, 2's a Rockstar Spud, 3's a Gunner, 4's a James Storm, 5 is a Bobby Roode. I'm going to give the show a 4, a James Storm. Very little they need to do to improve to make this a 5. They could have, the 3 so-so portions of the night, I think they could have condensed into one segment and gave us maybe 1 or 2 more wrestling matches. Just my opinion. I'm a person that likes to see wrestling in the ring. I'm more for wrestling than these little struggles of power segments. But basically, overall, a very enjoyable show. A 4, a James Storm. I thought it was very good. I think there was very little they needed to improve on. If they can keep going this route, TNA is going to be in very good shape. Basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.